Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Ryviews.com. I'm here in part 2 of my Gemcraft tips and tricks videos. This one's going to be about spending your skill points wisely. In this game there was definitely a new feature where unspent skill points went to your starting mana. So in the previous games, whenever you had skill points, you kind of had to choose where to spend them, but otherwise you always spent as many as you could. And then in Labyrinth, once you maxed out some of your skills and you just kind of piled them on to some, like the 2 or 3 skills that could be infinite. And that's how you kind of just kept ramping it up. This is very different, where obviously, you might reach a point in end game where you have a gluttony of skill points. I've certainly not reached that point. But you can see here, I've unlocked several of the skills, and I have a few of them at max. Most of them are not at max, and I'll explain that in just a second. But so, you can see here, my unspent skill points, I have 126 unspent. So I start with all that mana. As I kind of described in the last one, I think it's very useful to have a good starting position in these maps. Like I said, I usually start with 2 level 3 gems just to make sure I don't get screwed over really early on. While I think some of these skills will be useful to have higher points invested in them, it's really expensive. 1 skill point here costs 10 points, which drops my initial mana by 70, which might not seem like a lot, but it adds up really, really, really fast. So I think, it's very precious, and I'm really trying to good balance. You need to find that balance yourself, find out what you need in the beginning of a level. I've found a pretty good balance with 2 level 3 gems, but I guess it just depends on your playstyle in some cases. I usually start with 2 gems in a tower. I don't usually start with very many traps. I'll wait for that and then put in. But so basically, my strategy here, you start off with these 3 skills. They're all very useful, so I pretty much max out all these. Here I haven't quite maxed it out, but I'll explain that in a second too. So this is about building costs and gem stocking time, both very useful. Long term, you're going to be building lots of towers, lots of traps. This is definitely a good thing to have. It saves you lots of mana in the long run. So if you can take any kind of small hit in the beginning and use your mana wisely early on, this is a great one to actually use to... It will definitely pay off as far as mana is concerned later on. It's just hard to kind of swing that in the beginning. Here, it's very important first gem cost and gem combination cost. This is your bread and butter. Okay, this is how you get better, higher gems. This pays off for itself almost instantly. So this is very worthwhile. I recommend having it as high as you can all the time. Same thing with this. Every time you kill and every time you reach the mana milestone, this is a big deal. You're going to make mana faster every time that happens. So this also pays for itself a million times over really fast. So I would always max out that one. For lots of these other ones, particular things, kind of depends on what you use. That's why lots of these skills I only have level 6. I use them a lot, but it's hard to justify that early on. So I'm torn about some of this, but it's difficult. I do emphasize that usually, if you're new to Gemcraft, basically the special powers, which are like armor tearing, poison, they're very strong when you have a pure gem. When you add in 2 colors, they lose some of their special ability, but they gain certain things based on skills. You can see this skill, it adds damage and multipliers to pure gems and to specials, and to dual gems, and triple and quad. So depending on how you want to play, if you have a dual gem, you get 2 of the modifiers that are reduced rate, but then you have 2 different things going on. So it's very useful. I'm someone who likes having 2 different skills. I haven't really experimented with 3 or 4, but that would get really expensive as far as leveling up these skills. So maybe I'll experiment with it in the near future. But so going past quad, obviously you lose that plus 30%. So I never recommend doing that. It's a horrible idea in my opinion. You'll lose a lot of special power. It's really probably not in your best interest. But in this case, I almost always just pick 2, level them up as far as I can, and those are the gems I use for the entire mission. Whether it's traps, whether it's towers, I use armor tearing and I use poison. Poison's really useful early in the game because you don't have a lot of monsters that are particularly high in hit points. So poison goes through armor if I'm not mistaken. So it's really, really useful for taking down enemies early on. Armor tearing is the most useful late in the game because armor is huge. It's thousands of, hundreds of thousands of points later on in these like wave 70 or things like that. So it's really useful to be able to tear armor really quickly, both in your main gem that's attacking from the towers and in traps. So I find these two to be very useful because this is useful early, this is useful late. It's a good combination for me. I think this is pretty useful too. It depends on your playstyle. If you like running monsters through your wizard tower and constantly kind of cycling through mana, this is a good way to go. My girlfriend uses that method to lots of success. She has in previous games. I don't know how well it works in this game. I've never really been a fan of that strategy. But if you want to ramp up mana leech, it's pretty easy to just completely just farm mana really, really fast. But so basically my point is just to pick your playstyle and go with it. Don't waste skills on the gems you're just kind of flaky about. Pick ones you want and level them up. Leave the rest blank. Basically, once again, this depends on your playstyle, but lots of these, so you want to pick the ones you're going to use. So I use all 4 of these skills. If you're not going to use the skills, don't level them up, okay? I mean, it's kind of, if it's not something you really either remember to do or not something you like doing with the skills, just ignore it. I find them very useful. I recommend using the skills as much as you can. But certainly, during some parts of the game, I do kind of see myself sitting with this, kind of waiting until freeze is going to be useful, and just sitting there. So that's why I haven't leveled it up all the way, because I don't really care about the recharge time so much. It's useful late in the game, but early on, I'm just not sure. You know, it's depending on your playstyle, once again, you might use it, you might not use it. I would find it really useful in the very first or second wave, you know, before it's been able to charge. So I like having low recharge time for that, but even if I leveled this up all the way, I would not see a return on my investment there, so I don't find it useful. And like here, gem bombs. I almost never use gem bombs, so that's not leveled up. That's the one skill I have no points in. Oh, I guess other than the colors. And I don't use gem bombs. It's just not part of my strategy. So basically, there are some of these that you want to alter based on the level. I've encountered one level so far where you cannot build towers. You can only build traps. So you better believe I maximized the trap skill for that map. There are certain situations, where maybe there are lots of amplifiers that start on the map. And if you don't like building amplifiers, whatever, but ramp that up, use the amplifiers that are there. Or if you can't build or if you don't want to build amplifiers, don't use that. With this, since this covers pure and dual and triple and quad, I find it very useful in general. But if you're going to just have lots and lots of different gems, you might not need to level that up very high. Just use pure gems. You can use the modifiers. That's good in traps. Depends on your playstyle. Here, if you're not building any buildings, and you're not going to change around your gems that much, which some people change them a lot, some people don't. I don't move them around that much. So basically they just socket whenever they're reloading. Upgrading. And if you apply one of these skills to it, it automatically reloads the gem. So if you upgrade and then apply the skill, you don't have to worry about socketing time. So if you're in a map where you're not going to be building any towers, if you have lots of preset towers, this is a worthless skill. It's a waste of your mana. So sometimes I could see turning this off. These two I would never turn off, personally. The fusion and mana stream, I never turn them off. I don't think you should, but once again, might depend on your playstyle. I can't think of a situation where you would, but you might come across one. Just kind of think about how you play through a match and cater your skills to that. I mean, there's no reason these are set in stone. They're completely refundable. You can have a nice reset button here. You can also take them down or up individually. It's easy. Finally, I want to address the fact that all these have a primary and a secondary skill that attached to them. So you might notice, as I do this, it only levels up the first skill. When you reach level 3, you have the second skill. But going to 4 and 5, the second skill stays at 5%. You're only leveling up the first skill, the primary skill. So the secondary goes up in increments of 3. Skill level 3, skill level 6, skill level 9, and I'm assuming every increment from 3 from then on out. So, spend wisely. You notice almost all the ones I don't max out, I have an increment of 3. So that way I'm maximizing the secondary without wasting many unnecessary skill points. I think that's useful. So just be mindful, if you don't care about the secondary, whatever. But in general, I think you're getting the most bang for your buck if you leave it at an interval of 3. I think that's by far the best way to go. So take it or leave it, that's my advice. I hope you found this useful. That's all I had to talk about for skills. Next time I'll be talking about shadow cores, which are very new to this game, and they introduce a very different kind of feel to the whole process of playing through Gemcraft, in my opinion. So very useful, very exciting. Visit www.ryviews.com for more content. See you next time. Bye.